Welcome. In front of me is a, well, obviously you can see a POCO F3. And today I'll go over unboxing. I'll want an overview of this device. So let's start off by actually popping it open. So there we go. So up here, nothing. Then we got some POCO branding. Welcome to the POCO family. Some signatures and whatever. No one cares. So let's pop this open, and in here we got some stickers, paperwork. So again, no one actually cares about that. I'll just eat it out of the way. Then we got something that people might actually care about, which is a USB-C to a 3.5 millimeter jack. There we go. You can see it right here. Nice inclusions. Always like when companies do actually include things that they decided to, well, remove at the first place. Nothing in here. Then we got a nice case. Although I do have to admit, I prefer when they make them matte, so they're not like clear as these are. Matte finish just makes it look a little bit more aesthetic. Just the fingerprints and all the smudges aren't so visible on these. And then obviously we get the phone itself. No, set it to the side for now. More paper. Then we got the cable, USB-C to A. You can see it. With this orange branding on it. And then we got the charger. So this is a... the heck? There we go. For some reason it wasn't really applied nicely. So this is a 33 watt charger. You can see it right. Hopefully it'll catch his focus. Come on, camera. Hello. There we go. So I don't know if it's visible, but it's right above my finger. 33 watt max. So this is the max output of this charger, and I believe also the device itself. So nice charger, even nicer that it comes with the device. So yeah, now nothing else is in the box, so let's get rid of it and let's get to the phone. So I will hold the power key to actually turn it on, and there we go, it's turning on now. So right off the bat, you can see a couple different significant features of this device. So Snapdragon 870 5G, 120 Hz AMOLED display, Dolby Atmos dual speakers. I'm kind of curious about this one. Maybe they actually sound good. Highly doubtful, but I'm gonna check it out. And also a high resolution 48 megapixel triple camera. Now there's only one 48 megapixel, so this is just a well, kind of a lie, but oh well. So let's pop it open. There we go. Now I have to say the finish on here is like really dark. This is I believe some version of black. Let's see how they're calling it. Night black. I guess, yeah, that is fairly dark, so you know, I guess the name here is adequate. Now I'm gonna skip through the setup quickly just so we can get to the bread and butter of this device. Now while I'm skipping through it, I'm gonna quickly mention the display. So like I already did mention a couple parts of it. It's a 6.67 inch display, 1080 by 2400 resolution with an AMOLED display that runs at 120 Hz with a peak brightness of 1300 nits. 85.9% screen to body ratio, so fairly nice. 395 pixels per inch with a Gorilla Glass 5 on top of it. So there we go, that was a machine gun of information about the display, and if you're not sure what I just said by that, the key takeaway from this is the display is nice. That's basically the takeaway. It will run smoothly because of the 120 Hz. It's an AMOLED display, so it'll have those super dark inky blacks where pixels are basically turned off when they don't need to be turned on. And overall, the display is fairly nice. It has a super tiny cutout for the camera. Like this is really small. I'm not sure if this wouldn't be even the smallest one I have seen. It looks really nice. Now, while this is loading up, I'm gonna go over to the next part of it, which is at the back, and it's the quad camera setup. So, is that a quad? No, my bad. It's a triple camera setup. It's a microphone, I believe, right here. So the main sensor is a 48 megapixel wide sensor. Then we got an 8 megapixel ultra wide and 5 megapixel macro. If I remember correctly, this is basically the same thing as the Mi 11 Lite. I'm gonna quickly check. 6485. No, the Mi 11 Lite has actually a better main sensor. Instead of 48, it has a 64. So that's kind of weird. But anyway, we can. Oh, there we go. So the setup is now complete. I'm gonna also go into these settings just to make sure that everything is running at 120, and it's not, at least not at this moment. Let's go to display and 60 up. There we go. 120. Voila. And now we have this buttery smooth 120 Hertz display. I do recommend you to turn that on right away. It does make the device feel so much better. So let's get my plant right here and open up the camera and capture a couple photos. So the first one is just a normal wide sensor. And I'm gonna do a 2x zoom just for comparison with the macro. This is gonna be an ultra wide. And let's also go to a portrait. And macro is usually hidden away, so I try to not move much. Now it is using a different lens, so I need to move it a little bit to the side. It can't grab focus for some reason. To move it closer. Okay, I can move it closer, and so I guess I will do that. I want to have a fair comparison. So it looks like right here is good enough. Okay. So now that I got basically all the photos that I need, just to show the most rudimentary photo comparison ever, let's start off. Now the first photo, they will be basically starting backwards in this case. So we're starting off with a macro, going to like ultra wide, macro wide, and yeah. So this is the actual macro lens right here, and right off the bat, I can't really say it's anything amazing. So it just looks okay, to be honest. Then this is the portrait. I do like to capture a portrait, even though this one was really bad, not even in focus, to the point that I don't really feel like this is a fair photo to compare to, so I'm gonna do it again. There we go. So this is the portrait, and they did something really surprising. Whoa, that caught me off guard. What I'm talking about is, if you look at right behind it, right, it's super blurry, right? As well, portrait kind of does this, but most of the time phones do struggle with detecting the actual, like, what is supposed to be blurred out and what isn't. And here I would presume, just because it doesn't have that trash depth sensor, which makes the photos worse, it actually makes the portrait mode work fine. So this is a decent portrait shot without any kind of like weird cutting off of the needles, which usually is done by the 2 megapixel depth sensor, and that is exclusively almost always 2 megapixel. The trash is, you can basically, I think, put at 20, 21. So I'm gonna do that once more, because it did look weird when it's trying to grab focus on a live view, and I'm not sure if you can see, well, not from this perspective most certainly, but like, I don't know if you can see this, but it kind of tries to blur out above it. You see if this will take in if I do it right now. Okay, so now it's visible. So I guess sometimes it might happen. You can see it right here. This is just disgusting level of blur. So you can clearly see this like cutout where it messes up what is the background and what is the foreground. And this looks hideous. This is just ruined photo and it's unusable. So yeah. So keep watch for how the viewfinder actually works with the camera. Sometimes it might just create something like this abhorrent tragedy of a photo. So let's go back to this was the macro, this was the portrait, this was the ultra wide. So ultra wide is fine by all means. It's nothing outstanding. I will just call it fine. Then this is a 2x zoom. That basically does as good of a job as the macro. So there we go. Macro is kind of useless here, and this is just going to be the wide sensor. Again, you can zoom in fairly nicely. It still keeps detail. So going back to the camera setup, the triple camera that they market here is absolute bollocks. At tops you have 2 usable lenses, not 3. One can be substituted by the other. So 5 megapixel macro is outperformed by the 48 megapixel wide sensor, and the people that made this device were fully aware of that, just so you know. And this is a conscious decision just to make the phone look better, because, you know, as everybody probably right now thinks, the more cameras it has, at least that's how my grandma thinks, the better the phone must be, but that is not the case. And just to also put that in perspective, what I mean by the trash macro lenses here, this is a device that is, gosh, like what, 2 years old now, if not more. And this is the Huawei Mate 20 Pro. I kind of do this comparison fairly often with the devices, but I consider this to be an outstanding way to compare macro lenses, which this device actually has a decent one. So let's just grab our plant and show you what I mean, and just you can clearly see the comparison there. Now, unfortunately, I do need to get closer with this one because it does do macro as it's supposed to, which is really close up. But because of that, I do need to move the light to give it enough light, because otherwise I'm kind of covering and creating shade with the phone itself, which I still am, as you can see. So there we go. Now maybe I'm gonna move it so you can see what I'm doing. And there we go. Now this is, I believe, not as close as I can get with this lens right here, but it's close enough to give you a drastic comparison on how this can look like. So this is a macro shot. You can clearly see the just superior quality of a photo right here. The amount of actual macro part of the shot there is. Like, you can zoom in really close. There's something wrong with the plant here. So if I go back to this one, just to compare these two, let's go to gallery and look at this wasn't the macro, or was it? Yep, this was the macro. So here, let me just zoom in all the way and you can compare it yourself. So as you will see, these parts are the same parts. Both of them are zoomed in all the way, and you can clearly see the vast difference of quality here. Now also consider this is blurred out, a little bit blurry, because the focus of the lens was a little bit closer, so this was more in focus than the further out part. So this is not the fault of the lens, this is just Oh, I guess it is, but it's more of how the photo was captured. So you can clearly see the way actual macro lens, that is a good macro lens, should work, and what is here is not one. So now that we get out of the way the trash lens and every other lens here, apart from maybe the front one, I'm just going to quickly mention it. On the front we have a 20 megapixel wide sensor, shoots at 1080p 30 frames, so nothing really special here. And when it comes down to video capability of the back, we can shoot at 4K 30, 1080p 3060, and slow motion of 120, 240, and 970. No, 960, my bad. Which the 960 is like the super slow motion, which I believe is capped at just a second or so. So don't think you can record continuous super slow motion here. But anyway, now let's actually move to the internals of this device and what makes this actually tick. So in here we have a Snapdragon 870, and it's a 5G chipset. The device has several different variants. It comes with either 128 GB storage or 256, and the 128 has a built-in 6 GB RAM, while the 256 comes with 8. So obviously one will be more expensive than the other. The one that I have right here is the 128 with 6 GB RAM, so this is the cheaper version of this phone, but you can spec it out higher if you want to. And when it comes down to the storage itself, you do not have the ability to extend the storage here from what I've read, so I'm gonna quickly check. After all, this is a unboxing, so I'm taking everything from internet, but it is correct. As you can see, there is only dual SIM tray and no place for SD card. So if you plan to use more than 120 gigs of storage, I do recommend you to go for the 256 because otherwise you have no other way of extending the storage. And in terms of that storage, again, it comes with a UFS 3.1. That is the type of storage that comes here, and that is a good storage, what I would call. It basically approaches the speeds of an SSD, meaning any kind of read-write speeds on it will be blazing fast, so you don't have to worry about the phone chugging in that department. And lastly, the battery and charging here. We have the battery here is a 4520 milliamp hour battery with a 33 watt charger, which by what Xiaomi advertises, charges this battery in 52 minutes all the way to 100% from basically being fully dead. So that is what I would call a really good charging speed. And yeah, there's not much more to really say. It comes with all the things that you'd expect. Fingerprint sensor, although it's on the side. These things are ridiculously fast right here. If I can actually click on the settings, whatever. I'm gonna quickly set it up just so you can see how quick the fingerprint sensor is. And apart from that, it comes with NFC, and most certainly doesn't have a wireless charging and stuff like that, so don't expect that. From what I felt right now, also has a really nice haptic feedback. Haptic feedback meaning when you type, the vibration motors do feel really nice. They have this kind of like click almost, something like Apple does. Maybe not as refined, but still better than majority of the other devices. Okay, so now that I added fingerprint, let's quickly lock it. And yeah, you can see this is ridiculously fast. And just to describe this, I'm not even pressing the button, I'm just touching it. So this is a gentle touch on it, and you can see that you can basically click on it, and as long as you just hold it for a split second, longer than just like a really quick touch, it will unlock the device. And yeah, it is super fast. And apart from that, lastly, what I should probably mention is the price of this device, which this comes at $350. And honestly, for the price that this comes at, it is an outstanding device. The previous one that I did a review on was the Xiaomi Mi 11, which comes a little bit cheaper, but it is also a little bit worse than this. So Honestly, if I would have to pick between those two, if you're wondering between yourself, because they do look really similar. The difference, this one is a little bit chunkier, it's thicker. The Xiaomi Mi 11 is just ridiculously thin. It's almost feels like an empty inside a toy. But if I would have to pick between those two, I think I would go with this one because of the display. Both have AMOLED display and all that stuff, but this one has 120 Hz and a better processor, the Snapdragon 870, while the other ones came with 780, I believe, if you went for the 5G model, obviously, because comparing the 5G. And price-wise, I believe they would be the same price. So honestly, if I have to pick, I would go for this one. To me, the 120 Hz over the 90 is a way better deal. But at the end of the day, it's completely up to you. I do recommend to go for this one though. And that being said, this would conclude my overview of this device, and it is an amazing device. I would say most of the Xiaomi devices do strike a really good bargain for the price that they cost, what they offer. And this one is no exception. So yeah, that being said, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.